read them.
Yeah, great. You just get one of those little red lights to know which camera's on. Actually, they're both on.
Yeah.
That's great.
Really?
July 23rd, 2012. This is for the monks. I want to talk about the 4 types of sex addiction that we have. And they are sex addiction, relationship addiction, romance addiction, and love addiction. And they're interrelated, but they are quite different. They intersect, though. Sex addiction is, first of all, any kind of addiction it has 2 parts of it. It has compulsion and obsession. Compulsion is the inability to stop physical behavior, and obsession is the inability to stop obsessing about something. Most people think that they're 50-50. That's not true at all. If I were to take, for me, I stopped masturbating and I stopped cheating on women 22 years ago, last June 26. And if I took the actual hours I was compulsive, that means that I masturbated or cheated on a woman. If I was bragging, I'm looking at maybe an hour and a half a week. That's less than 1% of the week. So the compulsion was 1%, and the 99% was the obsession. So obsession is far and away the greatest part of the illness, although most people feel the most shame about the compulsion, the inability to stop. And obsession has a function. A function is to stop feelings. And I wouldn't sit around and obsess about who I could have sex with. Mostly my obsession was trying to not think about that. But to trying to not think about it is just as obsessive as thinking about it. It's powerlessness, and my life is becoming unmanageable. So 99% of the disease is obsession, 1% of compulsion. That's one thing. And regardless of what illness it is. So about sex addiction, it's an inability to stop sexual behavior. For me, it meant to stop masturbating. And I didn't do it a lot. I know guys who do it 5 hours a day, 5 times a day. That was never my experience. Did it for 5, 10 minutes, wanted to be orgasmic, had the tetrahydroquinone hit my brain, and I was done. I just wanted to feel the drug in my brain. And the other part for me was I couldn't stop cheating on my first wife. It was a compulsive behavior. There was something about the darkness of that was very attractive, and I couldn't get out of the darkness. I just couldn't stop once I started. Those were compulsions. But the rest of the time I would think about not doing that. That's where the obsession. So that's sex addiction. And it takes many, many forms. It can take the crack cocaine of sex addiction these days is internet pornography, because it's cheap, it's alone, it's dark, no one knows, and there's a crazy illusion that there are no victims. That's insane, because what that says is I'm not a victim, I'm victimizing myself. So it's not a victimless crime. But it can go from extremes, from one extreme from child molestation, which is a form of sex addiction, all the way up to just compulsive masturbating and to romantic obsession on the extreme. So let's talk about the 4 types of it. For romantic obsession is just where it's like wanting to be in the movies every day. It's like I want to fall in love with somebody. I'm constantly falling in love with someone. And that has nothing to do with the relationship. It can have nothing to do with sex. It can have nothing to do with love. It's just, I just love falling in love with somebody. I like going out with this person, see if I can fall in love with them. And it's just, that's romantic. And it's on the scale of devastation, it's pretty light. But if you tell somebody who's a romantic obsessive that it's light, it discounts and devalues the obsession, because that's so terribly much obsession. So there's romantic obsession. There's love addiction. Now, love addiction is very different from romantic obsession. Love addiction is that sense of oceanic oneness, that when I'm with this person, everything is complete. I'm complete and whole and satisfied, and everything is right. And what that really comes from is when children leave the womb, they need to separate from their mothers satisfactorily. And if it's not a complete and successful operation, then they always want to go back, and they need to feel whole and complete. Now that's very different from the romantic. The romantic they don't need to feel whole and complete. They just need somebody new all the time. So love addiction is the oceanic oneness. Anytime I see somebody I think she's the one, I just start heading the other way, because I know I'm in trouble. That's a sign. It's a red flare. Do not do this, Steve. So there's romantic obsession. There's a romantic addiction. There's love addiction. Relationship addiction is something quite different. It can have no romance in it whatsoever. It can have no love in that sense of oceanic oneness. It can just be, I have to be with somebody. I can't be alone. I have to date somebody. I have to have a girlfriend. I have to have a wife. I remember in my first marriage, I didn't love my wife. I certainly wasn't sexually addicted to her. I wasn't romance addicted to her. I wasn't love addicted to her. But I sure didn't want to get out of that relationship. I liked being married. I did not want to get out of it, because I have relationship addiction, separate from my love and romance addiction, separate from my sex addiction. So those are the 4 types: love addiction, romance addiction, sex addiction, and relationship addiction. And the solutions to those are all quite different. The treatment, the antidotal treatment to those is quite different according to each disease. My experience is I have all 4 of those things, and they intersect differently in different ratios with different people in different times. So I have to be constantly vigilant what I'm experiencing in terms of addiction, which of those 4 things, because it's not as black and white, it's just one thing. Patrick Collins, a great sexual addiction researcher, says only 11% of sex addicts have one addiction, which means if you're in a room full of sex addicts, 10 sex addicts, and all of them say they got one addiction, you're listening to 9 liars.